The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferentz.
Virginia's new governor, a Democrat, snubs public sector unions on collective bargaining. Meanwhile, Tennessee banning non-compete agreements for those making under $70,000 a year. And today on the show, the firefighters, Local 1120 in Bucyrus, Ohio. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 19th edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Jeremy Gillam will be our featured guest on the show today. Today is Trades Day here on America's Workforce, and if you're a firefighter, well, you're in one specific trade. You're putting out fires, and I'll tell you, I salute all those in public sector work because you do a lot and you're not making a whole lot of money. There's this perception that government workers are making a whole lot of money. No, that's not the case. Jeremy is a firefighter, a paramedic with the city of Bucyrus, Ohio, currently serves as president of Firefighters Local 1120. That's a role that he's held for the past 5 years. He's got a strong foundation in both fire and EMS. He holds multiple certifications, including Firefighter 2, paramedic, fire inspector, fire investigator, fire and EMS instructor, hazardous materials technician. He grew up in the fire service following the footsteps of his father. He'll talk about that. He'll talk about the conditions in Bucyrus, Ohio, and the need for adequate staffing in the fire service. And we're seeing this happen all around America. So Bucyrus, Ohio, small community, they're not taking care of the firefighters. And Jeremy's pretty concerned about this right now because the relations with the government not going very well, and he's going to speak to that. Now, they don't have a website, but you do. Now, they don't have a website. I'll tell you. Now, they don't have a website, but you can check them out on Facebook. Just go to IAFF Local 1120. Just go to facebook.com/IAFF Local 1120. And now, a brief look into the world of labor. The segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. Virginia's governor, a Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, has vetoed legislation that would have enshrined the right of Virginia's public employees to collectively bargain without obtaining approval from their localities or school boards. Though Governor Spanberger had expressed support for similar initiatives while in office and on the campaign trail, she initially sought amendments to the bill, which Virginia Senate Majority Leader Scott Surrevell described as a total rewrite. Her proposal, which an Economic Policy Institute worker economics blog analysis said, this is a quote, falls woefully short of progress and could even represent a step backwards for some workers, was rejected by Virginia's General Assembly back in April. Now, the veto was met with criticism from union leadership and activists ranging from AFSCME and the SEIU to faculty at various universities who expressed disappointment in the governor's betrayal after she received organized labor support during her campaign. Conversely, the Virginia Assembly's Republican leadership, well, they are praising her decision. So she had an opportunity, and she caved. And again, this is a Democrat with union support, very similar to what's going on in the state of Colorado. I'll get to that in a minute here. But first, I want to talk about Tennessee. It's reported that Tennessee has banned non-compete agreements for workers earning less than $70,000 a year and any prior such agreements subject to that income threshold will be voided. The law also directs courts to consider 2-year restrictions for workers above that amount, a reasonable time empowering the judiciary to modify agreements as necessary to make them enforceable. The California legislature has officially passed HB 26-1210, titled Prohibit Surveillance Price and Wage Setting, which is intended to curb the use of artificial intelligence to set prices and wages in the state. The bill specifically targets surveillance pricing and algorithmic wage discrimination, which advocates say are used to increase prices and at the same time lower wages. Wow. Now, to prevent this manipulation, the bill bans the use of personal characteristics such as genetic data, online behavior history, and biometric information from consideration. The bill also has some exceptions which hope to prevent adverse effects on consumer loyalty or discount programs, as well as clearing the way for employers to use AI in determining compensation based on worker performance with the employee's awareness. HB 26-1210 now heads to the desk of Governor Jared Polis. Again, a Democrat. It'll be interesting to see how he handles this bill, especially since it may lower people's wages. Amazing. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Jeremy Gillam will be joining us on behalf of the Bucyrus, Ohio Firefighters Department, Local 1120. Their story after this on America's Workforce.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org.
American workers are sick of struggling to get by. It's time to get ahead. In the Teamsters Union, workers are winning industry-leading contracts, historically high wages, fully paid health care, and retirement benefits you can count on. Across the country, Teamsters fight alongside our brothers and sisters to secure a better life. It's what we've been doing and how we've been living for more than a century. When we fight, we win. Join us. Be a Teamster.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Today we're focusing on the Bucyrus, Ohio City Fire Department. And joining us on our live line is a firefighter, paramedic, and the president of the union. That would be Local 1120. They have a Facebook page you might want to check out, IAFF Local 1120. Okay, let me repeat that, IAFF Local 1120. Jeremy Gillam, welcome to America's Workforce. You know, we tried to get Jeremy on the show to talk about short staffing, the lack of staffing at fire departments. We couldn't do it because he was called to duty because of short staffing. Jeremy, welcome to America's Workforce. I tell you, I couldn't think of a more appropriate way to introduce you on America's workforce, because this is an issue not just to Bucyrus, Ohio, but we've had a lot of locals on this program saying the same thing: short staffing, lack of equipment needed, especially when it comes to hazardous situations where chemicals could be involved. I'm sure we're going to get into all of that, but let's get into your background here. Let me ask you this right off the bat. This is a dangerous profession. Let's be honest about that. Why? Why did you go down this path in life?
Well, I grew up in the firehouse. So my dad's a retired assistant chief from Mifflin Township here in Richland County in Ohio. I grew up in the firehouse. I remember as a young kid catching a school bus at the firehouse. So it's kind of in the blood, and I had a calling to serve the community and those around me. I started as a volunteer on a couple different departments, was back and forth on two. I packed my schedule and it was running with two different departments, and then knew I wanted to do it full time. I tried college for a little while, and I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was young. So I have a degree now through the fire service. I just felt a calling and always wanted to do it. And growing up in the firehouse and seeing the brotherhood and, the guys my dad worked with from my uncles then, and they would show up birthday parties, or I'd have birthday parties at the fire station. So it's just something I've always been around, always knew I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a family kind of thing. Like you said, it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood too. Do you have any female firefighters over there in Bucyrus?
We currently do not have any females. We do have retired female from our fire department in Bucyrus. She retired as a lieutenant, but currently we do not know.
So how long now? How long have you been in the department? How long as union president?
I've been union president. I'm going into my 5th year. I've got 21 years in the fire pension system. I brought some time in from a previous job. I've been in the fire service total for 26 years.
How many members of the fire department in Bucyrus?
We have an 18-member local, and then the chiefs, 19 guys, including the chief, but 18 IAFF members.
So how's everything shaping up over there? How's relations going on with the city? And let's get into all the issues here. Let's speak to that, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
So last administration, we had a mayor and service director that really didn't support us. I think they would have made us a volunteer department if they could have. They just really didn't understand the ins and outs of daily firefighter life, why we work 24s. We had a strong city council that really supported us, seeing the need for staffing. And it's kind of flip-flopped on us now. We have a mayor and a safety service director that support us, see the need for staffing, but they have a council that has been really outspoken about saving money, cutting funds, cutting budgets, and, safety forces is the first thing that always seems to go when you start cutting. And for whatever reason, it's landed on the fire department. So instead of the mayor, safety service director, kind of digging their feet in, saying, hey, we need these guys, we need this kind of staffing, they're kind of letting the city council pull the reins on our daily staffing.
So the fact that they wanted originally, this was the previous administration, they wanted a volunteer fire department, which scares the hell out of me. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me stop right there. I appreciate anybody that volunteers, believe me. But it's a volunteer. It's not a paid deal, and then there's a lot of training and all that other stuff that's involved. Is that in the rear view mirror right now, pretty much?
Yeah, it is. I just think that they just want to cut us enough, that we're basically, hey, why can't the guys just come in when there's emergencies? Why can't we pay them on call? Why can't they just be around when there's emergencies? They don't look at it as a cheap insurance policy, which is what your fire and EMS services truly are, is a really cheap insurance policy. And then in 2021, we took on EMS. We were a fire-only department when I started. We didn't run EMS. We just kind of assisted the private service in town that was running the EMS service. And then 2021, we did take on full EMS responsibility for the city of Bucyrus, as well as the 4 townships to the west. So not only did we pick up our city, we picked up the townships running EMS. So we picked up a bigger coverage area all at once.
So when that happened, did they add staff, or were you asked to do more with what you had?
Well, we lost 3 guys through attrition, so they hired those 3 guys back, and then we ended up putting on 3 additional staffing. But like I kind of remind them now, is we had 5 guys in the firehouse. We had 6 guys down at the private EMS service. We had 11 first responders per se in the city at all times, and now we're down to 6 right now and 5 over the night. So we haven't gained anything.
In your opinion, I don't know what the population is of Bucyrus and the area that you serve over there, but and I know I've heard this from other locals that there's a certain number that comes to mind. They got this figured out, what it should be, what it is, and what it should be. So I'm going to ask you, we know what it is. What should it be?
I would say to safely day to day to account for, time off, injuries. If we would have 8 a day and then maintain our staffing at 6, I think it would be safer for not only us as firefighters and EMT or paramedics, but also as for the citizens we serve. 8 maintain 6 would be a solid number that I think that me as the union president, somebody that's out there doing it, knowing that that would cover a lot of the bases for the population we serve, the calls we handle, the fires we have.
So talk to me about being vocal about this situation. You sounds like your mayor understands a few things, but then you got the city council. And I don't know what the budget is right now, but they're always looking at those things and trying to figure out what they can cut. But as far as getting the message to them on what you need, what are you hearing?
Well, the city, before we took on EMS, paid for a pretty big study from a guy out of Cincinnati. He come up and basically laid out numbers. He said 9 is optimal, 8, is what you should be. You could minimally do this with 6. So of course the city administration at the time said, all right, we're going to go with 6. The fire chief warned them, as well as the union president at the time. We were in that weird transition during COVID. Basically told them, you're going to pay a lot of overtime. And they agreed, okay, if we're going to maintain 6 on duty, it's cheaper to pay overtime than hire guys. Well, here we are 5-6 years later, and now we're complaining about the overtime that we're accumulating, because if you're 6 guys a day, somebody's off on, sick leave, somebody's off on a vacation day, a Kelly day, you got to fill that spot. There's very few days throughout the year where we're not at least staffing 1 extra guy to cover an overtime spot. I've told them our budget hasn't gone up. We're not like living way outside of our means. They give the fire chief a budget. He lives within that budget, even with the overtime that we're amounting. And I think it's in the $600,000 range as far as overtime. We serve a population of right around 13,000 people. We're collecting EMS revenue. We're collecting subsidies for the 4 townships that we provide EMS coverage to. If the city would put the money into the fire department's budget that we are collecting on, we are pretty much self-sufficient. I spoke at the last council meeting, probably the council meeting that you may have seen, and I even brought it up, but you could hire 8 guys, or I'm sorry, 6 guys to get us to our 8 maintain 6. And it's not going to cost you any extra money, because it's going to eat up that overtime, and you're essentially going to erase all overtime if we would have go 8 maintain 6, because we allow 2 guys off a day through union contract. So you're going to have your 6 guys there pretty much 24/7, 365 days a year.
It's funny how they just don't get that idea.
Yeah,
it's just,
it's just amazing.
Guys?
Yeah. And the chief has the numbers out, so it's just crazy to me.
Let me ask you this: is it a benefits thing? If they hire somebody full time, then they got to pay for the benefits. Is that what they're trying to get away from then?
Yeah, they'll have to pay for the benefits package, the insurance package. They've got their portion of their pension that they have to pick up, 2 extra sets of gear for every guy. So yeah, there is some cost to hiring a new guy, but I think Chief had it right around $120,000 per guy. But you take that $120,000 and divide it out by the 600 plus that were in overtime, you're getting 6 guys for next to nothing.
Yeah. And a safer condition when you think about
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Jeremy, I got to take a quick break here. Our featured guest today is Jeremy Gillam. He's a firefighter. He's a paramedic. He's a union president. The union is the Firefighters Local 1120 in Bucyrus, Ohio. And they have a Facebook page I want to drive you to. It's IAFF Local 1120. Okay, IAFF Local 1120. More to come from Jeremy right after this. Once again, you're listening to America's Workforce.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
It takes LiUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LIUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LIUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Heat and Frost Insulators Labor Management Cooperative Trust. Find out more at insulators.org/LMCT. Hire union musicians. Call Music Talent of Cleveland at 216-881-1802. Call Music Talent of Cleveland as your dependable source for professional musicians in Northeast Ohio. Union musicians add harmony to weddings, elegance to parties, and uplifting music for all events. Music Talent of Cleveland contracts solo and ensemble musicians as well as bands and orchestras for single engagements. So hire union musicians. Call Music Talent of Cleveland today. 216-881-1802. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org. The Ironworkers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 ironworker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great ironworker. Whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Ironworkers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And remember, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Let's go back to Bucyrus, Ohio, population 12 to 13,000. Joining us as our featured guest is Jeremy Gillam. Jeremy is a firefighter, he's a paramedic, and he's a union president. The union is the Firefighters Union, Local 1120. They have a Facebook page, IAFF Local 1120, you want to go to. Been talking about short staffing, and this is something that's happening in fire departments all across the country. You were telling me in the break here that, and there's always a conflict, with those that work the fires and those that are controlling things in the office. And this has to do with your chief. And there was, I guess, a vote of no confidence here, which actually started some time ago. And I understand it's still going on. Explain what's happening right now, Jeremy.
Yeah, so we got a chief. He's one of those guys that, he tells us we need 6 guys, but he's not willing to stand firm on that 6 guys. We had some issues with, we've got some newly promoted captains and lieutenants and some guys coming up through the ranks, and we just don't have SOPs, SOGs that are up to date. We had the chief that was at the bargaining table last time where the city administration was agreeing to some things that we were proposing, and then the chief would step in and basically say, no, we're not doing that. Negotiating against us, somebody that come up through the ranks, somebody that has, lived by the union contract and now wants to pick it apart every chance he gets to benefit who, himself. It's not benefiting the guys that he's serving. I mean, that's the way I look at it. The chief, you're not only serving the community, you're also serving your guys. So yeah, it was proposed at the union table during a meeting that we take a vote of no confidence. There was some discussion on it, and it passed unanimously that we have no confidence. So I presented that to city council. We're hoping, it's still ongoing. We're hoping that things get better, that the chief uses this as a reflecting period per se, and we start getting some constructive momentum moving forward.
What kind of reaction did you get from council on this?
I think it was shock and awe at first. I don't think they anticipated me getting up and speaking on a vote of no confidence. They thought I was up there to speak about some of the things that certain council members had been saying out loud. So that's how I started my speech. And then the local members showed up to the council meeting. I called them up one by one, and we stood there shoulder to shoulder in solidarity as I read the vote of no confidence to council.
Well, we'll see what happens. I like the shock and awe part here.
Yeah.
You got to wake a few people up so you can get your message across. And hopefully,
well, and that's the thing is sometimes got to understand who you're speaking to and what's going to get across. And I'm hoping that, this is something that woke some people up, that they can take a self-reflection. And like I told the guys, and I've even had a conversation with Chief afterwards, and I said, you have expectations for your firemen. Well, every fireman has an expectation for a fire chief. And this is nothing personal. It's not you as a person. It's you as a fire chief, the guy holding that seat in that corner office. We expect more from that position. And not only should we expect it, we should demand it. It's deserved to the guys.
Jeremy, I want to talk about a response to, say, a chemical spill, and you probably are aware of what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. I mean, that was a national story when the Norfolk Southern train derailed. And my God, those chemicals were burning for days. Nobody was killed in that, but I fear, and I'm sure a lot of people in that community fear, their lives are probably going to be shortened because of breathing those toxic chemicals. Now, okay, that's East Palestine, Ohio. You're in Bucyrus, okay? And it seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that the trains that go across America always seem to go into these small towns. They always go through there. Yeah, multiple times, too, I might add. And often they're carrying stuff that's very hazardous if there's a derailment. I'd like to hear your perspective on what's the situation in Bucyrus, Ohio. And more importantly, God forbid something happens, are you ready for it?
I really don't think so. We have trains coming through Bucyrus all the time, like you mentioned. I think a lot of these smaller towns were established around railroad tracks and things coming through. Yeah, something like what happened in East Palestine happens in Bucyrus. Even our whole 18-man department, I don't think, could mitigate a situation like that and handle the other calls at hand. You're going to have other EMS calls and fires. I just think that we have a good group of well-trained individuals that I would go on any call with any of them, but something like that especially something that's going to hit the national scale, I hate to see what we look like on the national level that when the media starts showing up. We had a tornado touchdown 2 years ago now, and I was actually on duty, and we started getting calls for people needing help before the tornado sirens even activated. So it was a busy day. We had some small local media that showed up. Chief handled the media aspect of everything. Thank God there was no major injuries or huge destruction of property, but that could even been really bad.
Yeah. And we're seeing more and more of that violent weather. I mean, here in northeastern Ohio, we had a hailstorm, hail the size of softballs. A lot of damage. There was one house with all their windows knocked out, and the wind too. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But let's just hope and pray that it's not too crazy here, especially in the summer months. One more thing here, and I got to salute all the safety forces. I'll tell you, you never know. You never know, and I hate to say this, when it could be the last day of your life. You're walking into a burning building, or for police officers, what's going on in the streets with all the crime and all that stuff. The thing that I just want to point out, I salute you. I think the people listening to the show all salute you. And I'm just wondering, I could only imagine that the community of Bucyrus, Ohio, has a love affair with you guys. They have to, because you are protecting them. I'm just wondering if you could speak to that to our audience.
Yeah, so we've gotten pretty active on our social media accounts probably within the last 2 to 3 months. You've mentioned our Facebook and our Instagram. We try to keep it lighthearted, but we're trying to push the narrative through the public's eyes too that, look, we're trying things. I mentioned that we went down to 5 guys overnight. We have a wage reopener at the end of this year, and we took it to the administration and said, look, we'll take a 0% wage reopener. We'll take a 0% pay increase next year. Just give us our 6th guy back. That's how important this is, this 6th guy, to us. We took on a service at the bare minimum. I still can't fathom how you can go beyond something that everybody has said is a minimum, but here we are. But yeah, so with us being a little bit more active and engaged in our social media, we have seen that public influx where we do have a large support system behind us. But those that support you aren't usually the ones that are going to go down to city council meetings and talk. It's the citizens that have the negativity to say, that the things that, they're sitting up there making all this money on overtime. We're working 3,500 plus hours a year with our overtime, and they just don't understand that we're making the wages that we're making because of the hours that we're putting in, away from family, away from birthday parties, Christmases, holidays. So yeah, it's that balance to get the politicians to understand why you're seeing a number on a spreadsheet, but you're constantly seeing the ambulances or the fire trucks running up and down the streets too. So,
yeah. Well, I'm so glad you addressed that. It's important that everybody sees what goes on, especially in the fire department, and what you need. And you need more folks there. There's no question about that.
Yeah. And like we've said, it's a public building. Come up anytime, open the door. Taxpayers pay for it. So come up, take a tour, walk around, see what we do on a day-to-day basis. We're not strangers, and when we like to be seen out in the public. So yeah, come up and see what we do.
Not hiding anything. I love it. Nope. Jeremy Gillam, our featured guest on the show today. He is union president of Local 1120 of the Bucyrus, Ohio City Fire Department, firefighter, paramedic union president, well over 2 decades of service. And that Facebook page is IAFF Local 1120. Well, you got our full support here, brother. And
I appreciate
keep in touch with us on anything that's popping up. That's what the show's all about, okay?
Absolutely.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Tomorrow, the Ohio Federation of Teachers and the National Labor Office of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Until then, all of you, have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.